All right, you can start the meeting whenever you're ready.
Board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Hubbard.
Present.
Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderman Kotar.
Here.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Gunther.
Here.
Alderman Balmer.
Present.
Alderwoman Martin. Alderwoman Murphy.
Here.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Alderman Odenberg.
Present.
Alderman Rhodey.
Present.
Alderman Todd. Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
Alderman Muhammad.
Here.
Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Here.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Present.
President Reed.
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Ingracia.
Present.
Alderman Todd.
Present.
26 present.
Quorum being present, please prepare yourself for prayer. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 23rd.
Yes, let me unmute myself. Yes, as always, I'd like to have my friend Greg Meyer as my special guest today. Thank you.
Welcome, Greg. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman Todd?
I want to make my mic was muted. I want to make sure that Sharita heard me say present.
Oh, she did. She did.
Okay.
All right. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th like to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Today, June 12th, on this day in 1839, according to legend and also to Mike Shannon, Abner Doubleday invented the game of baseball. And more importantly, today is Jerky Day. Tell the alderman from the 23rd that refers to the food, not his actions. Thank you.
Approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes, June 5th, 2020.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion for the approval of the minutes.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I move for approval of the minutes dated June 5th, 2020.
Second.
Moved by Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report us to the officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the aldermen's mailboxes. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the St. Louis Convention Center Hotel 3 Community Improvement District. The reappointment of Mr. Patrick Lowry, whose term will expire June 6, 2024. The reappointment of Ms. Erica Griffin, whose term will expire June 6, 2024. I respectfully request your approval of the reappointment. Sincerely, Lyda Cruzen, Mayor.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the St. Louis Convention Center Hotel 3 Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to approve the mayor's appointments to the St. Louis Convention Center Hotel 3 Community Improvement District.
Been moved by
Second.
Alderman from the 7th, seconded by Alderman from the 6th. Any discussion? Alderman from the 1st.
Roll call, please.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 27th.
The question I have, if they don't come up till 2024, why are we voting to put them back in that position?
Would you like to inquire of the Alderman from the 7th?
Yeah, with the Alderman from the 7th, take questions.
Alderman
Yes.
from the 7th will yield question. Alderman from the 27th, please proceed.
Thank you. Could you explain why are we pushing to put them back on and their term doesn't expire until 2024?
Alderwoman, I believe they're on expired terms and the new terms will expire in 2024.
Okay, that's not making sense to me. So why are we even voting it then?
I guess I'm not, what are you looking at that says 2024?
That's what she read, the clerk read that said their term expires 2024.
The new term would expire in 2024.
So when the term they're in now, when does that expire?
I don't have that in front of me. I'm sure it either is about to expire or has already lapsed, which is not uncommon. Folks are sometimes on expired terms until they're reappointed.
Okay, and so are they gonna go before a committee?
No, I'm asking to approve these now. I mean, this is just a single, two hotel site SID downtown. I'm familiar with both of these individuals. I don't think there's a need to put this to committee.
Okay, and I'm not being ignorant, but isn't that the rules that they go before a committee?
For some appointments, we send them to committee. I know we did that just recently with the Board of Adjustment members. But for a single site SID in the 7th Ward like this, I don't see the need to send these to committee for further review.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 1st.
Mr. President and members of the board, I addressed that the Alderman from the 27th brought up, and the Alderman, although this is squarely in the 7th Ward, I wish we would just use 7th Ward money, not committed to over $4 million for the convention center. So the convention,
Alderman from the 1st, you're breaking up a lot. I don't know why.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you, Alderwoman from the 1st.
Touching every other word.
okay.
There you go. You're perfect now. Go ahead. You sound
that although usually when we're talking about a SID, it's something that's squarely within your ward and it is a asset in your ward. This happens to be a citywide asset that we have just committed $400 million for 40 years. The $6 million that was going to come up in 2021 that we finally would have paid off the convention center / football stadium. We turned around, which I voted no, and we committed this money at a time when we need that money now. And so to use that excuse that it's squarely within the 7th Ward only rings true if we only use money within the 7th Ward. We don't. We use citywide money that could be used for many other things. And I think that this is a great time to try to send something like this to the to a committee to examine on here. The second thing is that when they come to our committee, which is the Rules Committee. The SIDS were missing what they're supposed to have. If they're missing, it comes to my committee this time, I call down. They doesn't have all that proof that actually met the SIDS requirement. I will not call have been. I will vote it. I will not vote for it. Committee with a due pass recommendation. So I really think we need to be looking at all of these things that are more than just in the ward. I could understand if you neighborhood improvement district or SID, but when you're talking about the convention center, that's entirely different and should be discussed by the whole board.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 7th, you recognize to close.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to clear up a misconception from the Alderwoman from the 1st there. This is not, this community improvement district does not include the actual convention center. It is simply the Marriott Grand Hotel and the adjacent Courtyard Marriott Hotel. It's just the 2 hotels. It's not the actual boundaries of the convention center. It's a SID on those sites, not the convention center, which I would agree is a public asset. That said, I would request that we approve the mayor's appointments.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, and seconded by the Alderman from the 6th, that we adopt the mayor's appointments to the St. Louis Convention Center Hotel 3 Community Improvement District. There's been a request for roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman, you're muted.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Ballmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Odenberg.
Aye.
Alderman Rhodey.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't hear me. I said no because the hotel is the same as the convention center. We spent.
Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
26 aye votes and 1 no vote.
By vote, staying the motion, Alderman from the 7th, to approve the mayor's appointment.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the Ballpark Village Community Improvement District. The appointment of Ms. Gabrielle Robinson, a property owner who's replacing James Waiter, whose term will expire on September 20th, 2023. I respectfully request your approval of the appointment. Sincerely, Lyda Cruzen, Mayor.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Ballpark Village Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move to approve the mayor's appointment to the Ballpark Village SID.
Second.
Been by Alderman from the 7th, seconded by Alderman from the 10th, and Alderman from the 16th. Any discussion? Alderman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, if the Alderman from the 7th would yield.
Alderman from the 7th will yield the question to the Alderman from the 1st.
Yes.
Alderman from the 1st, please proceed.
Since you brought up in the previous that it wasn't the convention hotel, I mean the convention. So I was here when we spent the money on the hotel also. What a ballpark community improvement cover?
Sorry, did you ask what does it cover?
Exactly what I asked.
Okay, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. The Ballpark Village SID boundaries is basically the Ballpark Village area, which is Clark. It doesn't include the ballpark, so it's north of Clark, it's 7th Street, Walnut, and Broadway. So it's that square where the Ballpark Village complex is located.
But it doesn't include the Ballpark Village?
No, it includes Ballpark Village. It doesn't include Busch Stadium.
Okay, but it does include Ballpark.
Yes, it's a
Ballpark.
SID for Ballpark Village.
All of it is included?
Yes.
Okay, and can you tell me what's located in Ballpark Village?
Can I tell you what's what?
What is located there in Ballpark Village?
Well, Ballpark Village, as I'm sure you're aware, Alderwoman, is a mixed-use development containing restaurants, bars, a new residential tower, a hotel, a gym, a marketplace that's scheduled to open shortly.
Okay, and do you consider that a city asset?
Do I consider it a city asset? I mean, it's privately owned. Obviously, as we're all aware, there was some city subsidy and state subsidy given to the project. It's a public it's an asset available to the public.
You say some. Are you talking like $1,000 billion? Or what do you find as some?
Alderwoman, the project has a MODESA, which is a form of a TIF that was created by the legislature. I don't have the numbers of the value of the subsidy in front of me. It was the source of much debate when we passed phase 2 a couple of years ago.
And so when you say a sum, you really mean it's a substantial amount of a given to both Ballpark 1 and 2.
I don't know, Alderwoman, your definition of substantial and mine might differ.
That is why I asked you when you used the term sum, what did that mean? Because I assumed that that's why I was trying to get a feel. My next question is, so Gabrielle Robinson is replacing someone?
Yes.
And the person that she's replacing, who was that? Do you know?
She's replacing a guy named James Watry, who was the head of operations there. He has moved on to different employment out of state. His term expired in September, I believe September 20th of 2019. Ms. Robinson is the new VP of operations for the Cordish affiliate that runs Ballpark Village.
And what are the requirements to a member of the Village Improvement District?
I don't have those in front of me. I don't know.
So how do we know if Gabrielle fits that requirement or not?
Well, I know one of the requirements is a property owner within the district, and she is an employee of the property owner.
So do we allow, is it requirement that be a property owner, or is it requirement that it be a representative of the property owner?
A representative of the property owner is permitted. The property owner is an LLC holding company.
Okay, I would suggest push through the appointments and say, well, that we should have, you should have the ability to say these are how they fit it. At the very would be my suggestion. Then I don't have a problem. I have a problem. So if you're sure and you can, I feel more comfortable. Don't feel comfortable that the mayor has been vetting people. Several instances besides Dr. Eccles where the mayor's office has not been correctly vetting people. That is our responsibility. And I would request that people who are now going to push through these appointments that at a minimum know what the requirements to be on improvement districts or whatever else they pay for. I have no further questions. Roll call.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 7th, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd ask for favorable consideration of Ms. Robinson's appointment. I renew my motion and request previous role.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th and the 16th, that we approve the mayor's appointments to the Ballpark Village CID.
Previous role.
There's been a request for roll call. There's been also a request for previous role. Hearing no objection, motion carries. We've dispensed with line items 7 through 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 61, sponsored by Alderwoman Navarro, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on June 3rd, 2020, to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map and in City Block 5522 from A, Single Family Dwelling District, and H, Area Commercial District to H, Area Commercial District only at 5720 DeGiverville Avenue, so as to include the described parcel of land in City Block 5522 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 62, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on June 3rd, 2020, to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map from B, 2 Family Dwelling District to F, Neighborhood Commercial District in City Block 38331.18, 1297 Amherst Place, so as to include the described parcel of land in City Block 3833.18 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 63, sponsored by President Reed, an ordinance directing the Commissioner of Police to amend St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department use of force policy order issued orders SO 1-2014 to include a ban on officer from using chokeholds or strangleholds as a use of force method for officers to use de-escalation tactics when appropriate and possible in place of force tactics, to establish a duty to intervene policy and include comprehensive reporting requirement and containing a severability and an emergency clause. Board Bill 64, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment and directing the Director of Airports and Comptroller of the City of St. Louis to enter into and execute on behalf of the city the Second Amendment to Banking Concession Agreement, amending Banking Concession Agreement AL-278 as amended, containing a severability clause and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 65, sponsored by Alderman Coder, Alderwoman Negracia, and Alderman Gunther. An ordinance amending Section 2, Paragraph 14.01.130 of Ordinance 69346 to permit drinking license holders to sell intoxicating beverages not in their original package for consumption on or off the licensed premises, and amending Section 2, Paragraph 14.01.390 of Ordinance 68536 to permit licensed restaurants or bars to sell intoxicating beverages for consumption on or off the licensed premises, and amending Section 4, Paragraph 14.03.040 of Ordinance 68536 to permit Sunday drink license holders to sell intoxicating beverages for consumption on or off the licensed premises, and amending Section 1 of Ordinance 68786 to permit licensed persons to sell intoxicating beverages at retail not in their original package, and amending Section 4, Paragraph 14.05.125 of Ordinance 68536 to permit the refilling of liquor, and amending Section 6, Paragraph 14.05.140 of Ordinance 68536 to create an exception to the prohibition on the sale of intoxicating beverages to persons in an automobile and containing sunset clause. Board Bill 66, sponsored by Alderman Coder and Alderwoman Negracia, an ordinance submitting to the qualified voters of the city of St. Louis gross receipts tax to be imposed on telecommunication providers and fiber network providers as set forth herein that are not otherwise currently subject to taxes, providing for an election to be held therefore and the manner of voting thereat, and upon passage of said ballot measure and amendment to City of St. Louis Ordinance 67717 as codified in section 233402020 of the revised code of the City of St. Louis and section 2334010 through 2334030 of the revised code of the City of St. Louis, reflecting gross receipts tax to be imposed as approved by the voters of the City of St. Louis. Board Bill 67, sponsored by Alderwoman Green and the following alderpersons: Ingracia, Spencer, Rice, Todd, Gunther, Navarro, Cone, and Vaquero. An ordinance submitting to the qualified voters of the City of St. Louis a proposal to amend the charter of the City of St. Louis to require, except as otherwise provided by and subject to the conditions set forth in this ordinance, that contracts for the privatization of a public service provider or public asset or for outsourcing responsibility for the performance of a public service or core function of a department or a division of the city first be approved by ordinance passed by a majority of the Board of Aldermen and approved by the mayor, then ratified by the qualified voters of the City of St. Louis at a citywide election prior to the city entering into contracts and containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 68, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian, the 15-foot alley in City Block 696 as bounded by Stoddard from Jefferson to Elliott, the 15-foot wide in City Block 968 as bounded by Stoddard, Jefferson, Mills, and Elliott in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 69, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in the 20-foot wide east-west alley in City Block 941 as bounded by Dr. Martin Luther King, 19th Street, Delmore Boulevard, and 20th Street in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill 70, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface, surface, and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in Elliott from North Market northerly to a point previously vacated by ordinance 6779 and Leffenwell from North Market northerly 26502 feet to a point previously vacated by ordinance 65271 in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereinafter described in accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 1.4 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. That is the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to committee.
To the HUD's Committee, Board Bill 61 and 62. To Public Safety, Board Bill 63 and 65. To Transportation and Commerce, Board Bill 64. To Public Utility, Board Bill 66. To Ways and Means, Board Bill 67. And to the Streets Committee, Board Bill 68, 69, and 70. That is the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading.
The following board bill was reported at the Streets Committee with a new pass recommendation. Board Bill 51, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance amending Section 1 of Ordinance 62101, codified in Chapter 1762010 of the revised Code of Ordinances of the City of St. Louis to designate the Parking Commissioner as chairperson of the Parking Commission and to designate the Parking Commission as the city's authority responsible for overseeing public parking, including planning and coordinating public parking policies, programs, and operations for any parking facility or area that is owned, leased, or otherwise managed or controlled by the parking division, whether in whole or part, and to establish the duties and responsibilities of the parking commission, and to establish the duties and responsibilities of the treasurer as the supervisor of parking meters. The following board bill was reported out of public safety with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 20, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance enacting a curfew for Chambers Park, Jet Bank Park, Norman Say Park, Terry Park, Tiffany Park, prohibiting individuals from idling, wandering, strolling, playing, or otherwise being in or upon the premises of said parks and public areas immediately adjacent to said parks daily throughout the year between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. and containing an emergency clause. The following board bills were reported out of HUD's committee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 2, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on April 1st, 2020 to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map and in city block 4969 from D, multiple family dwelling district, and F, neighborhood commercial district, to D, multiple family dwelling district at 4172 and 4178 Folsom Avenue, so as to include the described parcels of land in city block 4969 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 3, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance establishing and creating a planned unit development district for city blocks 2184, 218501, 218704, 218703 to be known as the Iron Hill Planned Unit Development District and containing a severability clause and an emergency clause. Board Bill 4, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on April 1st, 2020 to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map and in city block 387418 from E, multiple family dwelling district, to the H, area commercial district at 5637 Persian Avenue, so as to include the described parcel of land in city block 387418 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 5, sponsored by Alderwoman Navarro, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on April 1st, 2020 to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map and in city block 505101 from B, 2 family dwelling district, to H, area commercial district at 614 Lake Avenue, currently 5165 Washington Place, so as to include the described parcel of land in city block 505101 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 7, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on April 1st, 2020 to change the zoning of property as indicated on the district map in city blocks 968 and 969 from both CG, multiple family dwelling district and local commercial and office district, and F, neighborhood commercial district, to the G, commercial, to the local commercial and office district, so as to include the described parcels of land in city blocks 968 and 969 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 22, sponsored by Alderman Coder, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on May 6, 2020 to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map from J, industrial district, to G, local commercial and office district in city blocks 377, 1501 and 1501 rear South 7th Street and 1400 South 8th Street, so as to include the described parcels of land in city block 377 and containing an emergency clause. The following board bills were reported out of public employee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 29, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, Alderwoman Howard, and Alderman Balmer. An ordinance submitted to the qualified voters of the city of St. Louis a proposal to revise section 2 of Article 8 of the City of St. Louis Charter, which requires city employees to reside within the boundaries of St. Louis, and thus said employees except for city agency and department directors appointed by the mayor to reside outside of the boundaries of the city of St. Louis, and providing for an election to be held for voting on the proposed revision and the manner of voting thereat, for the publication, certification, deposit, and recording of this ordinance, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 60 as amended, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance relating to the appointment of and salaries of certain employees of the Recorder's Office pursuant to Section 82610 of the revised statutes of the state of Missouri by repealing Ordinance 70336, allocating certain other employees to a grade with rate and containing an emergency clause and an effective date. The following board bills were reported out of Ways and Means with a due pass recommendation. An ordinance pertaining to the transit sales tax imposed pursuant to Section 94660 revised statutes of Missouri as directing the treasurer of the City of St. Louis to deposit funds received pursuant to said sales tax in the city public transit sales tax trust fund, account 1, appropriating $9,354,000 from the said sales tax for the period herein stated to the Bi-State Development Agency for certain purposes and containing a severability and an emergency clause. Board Bill 46, sponsored by Alderman Ballmer. An ordinance pertaining to the transit sales tax imposed pursuant to Section 94660 revised statutes of Missouri, directing the treasurer of the City of St. Louis to deposit funds received pursuant to said sales tax into the City Public Transit Sales Tax Trust Fund, account 2, appropriating $9,354,000 from the said sales tax for the period herein stated to the Bi-State Development Agency for certain purposes containing a severability and an emergency clause. Board Bill 47, sponsored by Alderman Ballmer, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $17,860,000 as described in Section 94600 through 94655 revised statutes of Missouri 2000 as amended for the period herein stated, which sum is hereby appropriated out of the Transportation Trust Fund to the Bi-State Development Agency for transportation purposes containing a severability and an emergency clause. That is the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
We will dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 12, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Airport Commission, the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller on behalf of the City of St. Louis, the owner and operator of St. Louis Lambert International Airport, to accept a first supplemental agreement to the Airport Aid Agreement for project number Air 196-113C1 offered by the Missouri Highways Transportation Commission for the marketing and promotion of air service at the airport for a maximum obligation of $515,000 for the reimbursement of direct costs associated with projects funded under the grant agreement, which extends the time period of the supplemental agreement by 6 months from June 30th, 2020 up to and including December 31st, 2020, and containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the perfection consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the perfection consent calendar.
Second.
From 22nd, seconded by Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? Alderman from the 19th.
Mr. President and members of the board, I'd like to ask for a suspension of the rules to move Board Bill 12 to the next perfection calendar.
It's on the perfection calendar now, perfection consent calendar. It will have to still go back through engrossments before we can third read it.
Okay, thank you.
Spend the day on it. But it's been moved by Alderman from 22nd, seconded by Alderman from the 10th that we perfect Board Bill number 12. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
That is the extent of perfection consent calendar.
Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 28, sponsored by Alderman Coder, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Negracia, Alderman Gunther, Alderwoman Howard. and Alderwoman Hubbard, an ordinance enlarging the boundaries of the City of St. Louis Port Authority, subject to the approval of the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission, and authorizing and directing certain actions by the Port Authority.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill number 28.
I move to perfect Board Bill 28.
Moved by Alderman from the 7th, entertain a second.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman from the 22nd. Alderman from the 7th, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Board Bill 28 is an expansion of the current boundaries of the Port Authority, taking in a portion of downtown and the 9th Ward, and now the 11th Ward, 13th, 14th, and 25th Ward. There is a map. There's a map attached to the board bill that came out of committee. I'm going to introduce an amendment momentarily to expand and modify those boundaries slightly after input from a couple of colleagues, including the Alderman from the 25th. The purpose of expanding the Port Authority in this way is first and foremost as a commitment to the Major League Soccer Stadium. As part of the soccer stadium, we all agreed via resolution to support a community improvement district, which I know has been introduced and I think has a hearing next week. A transportation development district, which we don't actually approve; those go to the court. And we agreed to a port improvement district. Port improvement districts are just like SIDS in the sense that they are you can levy a 1% sales tax, but you've got to be within the Port Authority boundaries, which the MLS Stadium site is not currently. So this board bill seeks to put that site, get a line out to that site, and basically encompasses a lot of downtown, including portions of my ward, Alderwoman Hubbard's ward, Alderwoman Ingracia, and Alderwoman Davis's ward. In addition to a planned or a port improvement district, there's a number of benefits to adding to the Port Authority. And I know this was a subject of debate last year where we decided we didn't want to expand the whole city. I suspect as people hear about some of these benefits, there may be more folks that in the future want to maybe expand some of this into their wards. A couple of years ago, the state of Missouri authorized what's called an AIM zone, which is an advanced industrial manufacturing zone. So within port districts, you can designate areas as AIM zones. And what that allows you to do is if there's a project happening that is creating new jobs in that area, you can, the project zone can keep 1/2 of the state withholding taxes for that district to reinvest in the district. So whether it's infrastructure or, paying off bonds or whatever else. But so basically you can divert development costs by allowing the city, that zone, to keep state taxes. That's not something we've really utilized yet, I think, with the Port Authority, but I think it's something we hope to start doing more of in the coming years. And that program, I think, is set to expire in like 2023. As Alderman for the 7th Ward, I regularly use the Port Authority to seek grant funding for projects along the riverfront. So for example, if you've been down to Laclede's Landing, we've replaced a number of the cobblestone streets that are very expensive and difficult to maintain. We were able to get FEMA disaster money to help offset some of those costs that otherwise wouldn't be available to the city, but for the landing's location within a port, the existing Port Authority. So my hope is we can get this passed today. The amendment that I hope to offer is in your virtual desks. It's in the consent folder in the Google Drive. If anyone is interested in taking a look, and all the amendment does is basically expand those boundaries on the southern side. It keeps the existing boundaries downtown that we've discussed and passed out of committee, and adds a little leg up this rail line going into the 25th Ward to take in a light industrial site in Alderman Cohn's ward that he's seeking to redevelop. So with that, I would offer my amendment. I move to amend Board Bill 28.
Second.
With amendment number 1.
amendment. It's been moved by Alderman from the 7th, that we
Second.
accept amendment number 1, and seconded by
Alderman from the 25th.
Alderman from the 25th. Your voice sounds a little bit different online. Seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any further discussion on amendment number 1? And amendment number 1 was a part of your original documents in the Google Drive when you downloaded the agenda and everything, and the board bill. It was in those documents. Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. With Alderman from the 7 yield.
Alderman from the 7 will yield to Alderman from the 3rd.
Of course.
Alderman from the 3rd, please proceed.
Thank you, sir. Alderman from the 7, just a quick question. I just want to verify because I'm looking for the amendment. I can't find it. So does this at all come north towards the 3rd ward at all? Or do we only touch the 5th ward?
The expansion does not come into your ward, Alderman. I don't know your boundaries on the northern. If do you touch the riverfront at all up in the 3rd ward?
No, sir.
Okay, so no, then this does not impact the 3rd ward.
Okay, all right, no further questions.
All right, Alderman from the 1st. For some reason, we're not hearing you. Alderman from the 1st, for some reason, we're not hearing you. Let's try it again. Yeah, we still don't hear. We don't hear anything, Alderman. It doesn't appear that you're muted. I don't think you're muted. You want us to come back to you? Yeah, we can't hear anything. All right, we'll come back to you. Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make note that I actually am supportive of expanding the Port Authority to all areas that connect to our port that are, means of transportation, whether that's the railroads or other waterways, et cetera. I mentioned this previously, but I do believe that this expansion should be done in coordination with an economic development plan. As most of you are probably aware, SLDC has been undergoing the development of an economic development plan. This is not incorporated in it, which is sorely disappointing to me that they haven't incorporated tools like this into the economic development plan. There's a litany of other things that are disappointing about that economic development plan, but since this is of current debate and topic, I have to reference that. My
Hello.
border.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
My border. So the border, the western border of my ward is the Missouri Pacific Railroad. There's spurs off of that run into light industrial areas that are either underutilized or vacant. And there's a handful that are in productive use currently. But I view this as another tool that we would be able to use to the benefit of economic development within the community. I did have some conversation with or communications with the alderwomen from the 13th and 14th wards as well, because on the west side of my border in the 14th ward, there's also former industrial use facilities that have been long vacant that would benefit, potentially benefit from an expansion of the Port Authority along that rail line. In addition to that, in the 13th ward, there's also some right around the like Delore Spring Gustine intersection. So anyways, I view this as another tool that we can add to our toolbox. I'm disappointed in SLDC that they wouldn't be incorporating that into a plan and better presenting that. And I think that when this was first introduced last session, that it just seemed like a gotcha to be able to incentivize the stadium further. Whereas I think in other parts of the city outside of the central corridor, this is a real tool that can be utilized to help redevelop areas that have seen disinvestment. So it's my hope that we can use it for that purpose to reinvest in communities that have seen significant disinvestment for decades now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to go back to the Alderwoman from the first.
Mr. President, members of the board, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. First of all, I did send you a chat text asking you to take Board Bill 25 off of the third reading consent calendar. I didn't know if you saw it, so I wanted to make that note.
Okay,
Okay. And are we able to speak to the entire board bill, or are we just speaking to the amendment right now?
We're talking to the amendment right now.
Well, then I'll wait because I have some questions to ask and it's not really about the amendment. So I'll wait. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 22nd. Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually have a question on the actual bill, so I don't have a question on the amendment right now.
All right. All right. Alderman from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am just curious about, sorry, I was contacted by a number of residents that were interested in providing public testimony on this bill. So I'm supportive of the idea of expanding the Port Authority to utilize these really great tax programs that are available per the state. But I think there were some questions about the transparency of a new map today that wasn't made public, and there were some constituents that did want to provide public testimony, had some concerns about Port Authority. I know there was a unfortunate incident with the Port Authority hearing yesterday, and so maybe that impacted some of it, but I just wanted to make sure that I spoke to that because the concerns of the constituents that the map is significantly different in committee. There were some people with concerns. So I don't know, Alderman, could I inquire of the Alderman from the 7th ward, please?
Alderman from the 7th will yield the question to the Alderman from the 8th.
Yes.
Alderman from the 8th, please proceed.
Thank you, Alderman Coder. Just because this is such a significant expansion, was there any consideration to send this back to committee for any public discussion?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we discussed, and frankly, during the committee hearing, Shane brought up this concern, and at the meeting, I said, hey, I'll work with you on an expanded boundary to get to this site. I don't think there's any consideration to send it back to committee. It's also somewhat time sensitive. We would like to get this done for the soccer stadium project.
Okay, I appreciate it. That's really all the questions I have. I just wanted to bring up those constituent concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 14th.
I just would like to say that I appreciate the Alderman from the 25th going forward with this, because I was hoping that we would have an expanded port. This, for our Rust Belt areas in the 14th, 13th, and 25th ward, I'm hoping that this may incentivize some development. We're sort of a neglected area down here. Even though everybody thinks we're oozing money, not so. So if this would help us to incentivize and maybe bring some more to the table, I'm very pleased to be part of this as a co-sponsor. So, and I appreciate again the Alderman from the 25th and the Alderman from the 7th's willingness to work with us on this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Any further discussion on the amendment? Alderman from the 7th, you recognize the close on the amendment.
Thank you. I renew my motion and ask for your favorable consideration of amendment number 1.
It's been moved by Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th, that we adopt amendment number 1 for Board Bill 28. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook, Alderman Bosley, Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Gracia,
Aye.
Alderman Coder,
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice,
Aye.
Alderman Gunther,
Aye.
Alderman Balmer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin,
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Green,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderman Rhodey,
Aye.
Alderman Todd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderman Narayan,
Aye.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro,
Aye.
President Reed,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook, Alderman Bosley,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard,
Aye.
26 aye votes.
By vote, staying the motion of the Alderman from the 7th and adopted amendment number 1. Now what's before us is the Board Bill 28 as amended. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. All right. If the alderman from the 7th would yield, I have a couple of questions.
Alderman from the 7th, will yield to the question from Alderman
Yes.
from the 1st.
And I
Alderman
can
from the
hear you
1st,
loud and
please
clear.
proceed.
Thank you. Alderman, you talked about a sales tax. Could you go over that again about the sales tax part of it?
Yeah, so within a port in the port boundaries, much like you can levy a 1% sales tax. It's called a port improvement district tax, similar to a SID. I mean, it doesn't cover the whole boundaries. You've got to set it out geographically. So that is the plan for the soccer stadium. That is one of the 3 1% sales taxes on that site that's proposed.
And I guess my question is, didn't the state limit like how much sales tax we could have? And didn't we have to, sometimes now when we're doing sales tax, don't we have to go to the state and get permission to lift our limit? Is this part of that?
Alderwoman, I'm not familiar with that. I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
Okay. And the other thing is that, okay, so we know that they have problems out in the county with the Port Authority. Is there a way, if this is not working the way that they think it should, is there a way to remove these boundaries from the Port Authority? Or is the thought that once they're under the Port Authority, they remain?
No, we can always amend the port's boundaries. That's well within our rights as a Board of Aldermen.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have no further questions.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 23rd.
You know, I guess I can't vote for it. I know that. And I was clear in committee, I can't vote for it. Because what it does is, even though they say we'll work with the alder people from those wards, it does go around the full board of aldermen. In other words, the mayor appoints the port authority, and that authority is who would make these decisions. And they can, even though they can consult the board of aldermen, they can also say, well, okay, we did it, and it's just a promise. But they can go around, they can do tax abatement and stuff. I'm a little bit upset by this because they're all saying, well, if you don't support this, well, then soccer goes away and it's all your fault. Then the boundary could have been drawn just including the soccer stadium. Instead, it's all across downtown. I just want to explain, everybody's going to vote how they feel, but at this point, I'm just letting you know, I can't support it. We voted against this. It was misused in the county. That doesn't mean it's going to be misused in the city. But I do have personal concerns. So anyway, I just wanted to make my statement, and, explain why I will be a no vote on this. I was a no vote in committee, and I was the only one. So I will say that. So anyway, I'll mute myself from that then. Thank you.
All right, Alderman from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am obviously a co-sponsor on this legislation. I did want to make sure, I've had a lot of questions from my colleagues, and I do still share the same concerns that we had when this board bill was introduced last session with respect to the enabling legislation at the state level, which would allow for an unelected body of representatives to move forward with eminent domain or tax abatement, and agreed to do this as a trial. And there were other folks who were interested in being on board with that for their wards. This is obviously in part to help the soccer stadium, but a conversation that was happening outside of the soccer stadium issue as well. And so I have encouraged SLDC numerous times, and if they're not interested in working on it, I will do my best to work with the state legislature to try and remove that provision, because I think it could possibly be, even with a memorandum of understanding with St. Louis Development Corporation, not something that would be held up in court with respect to them coming to the board to ask for permission from us in order to move forward with eminent domain or a tax abatement outside of that alderman being supportive of it. So that is still an issue. I wanted to raise it just because I know I have colleagues who are concerned about that. And it's not something that we were able to fix in between the bill being introduced last time and this current bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the Alderman from the 7th yield to a question?
Alderman from the 7th will yield a question to Alderman from the 10th.
Of course.
Alderman from the 10th, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the 10th ward being at the headwaters of the River de Pere, do we qualify as a port in my ward?
Well, we could expand the boundaries further over there. And I think that was one of the things the Alderman from the 25th mentioned. If this works out as we hope it does, I would hope in the next year or so we see other wards wishing to participate in the expanded boundaries.
All right. Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Alderman from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also share some of the concerns about the power of eminent domain and the tax abatement authority. And I was wondering if the Alderman from the 7th would yield for a question.
Alderman from the 7th will yield a question to the Alderman from the 28th.
Yes.
Alderman from the 28th, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you just expand a little bit on kind of how the process has worked so far, or how you envision, if there is a proposal on the table for eminent domain or tax abatement, what that process could look like?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yes, port authorities by state law have the power of eminent domain and also the power to tax abate. That has to go through, the Port Authority Board, which is subject to our advice and consent. I mean, I've worked at the Port Authority since I've been down here. Never once has the Port Authority, you know, approved a project that I wasn't aware of and supportive of. I don't envision them doing that. We have a commitment from the chair of the Port Authority, Matt McBride, who I know many of you know, as well as the staff and SLDC to not, you know, take action in the port boundaries that is contrary to the alderman as it relates to eminent domain and tax abatement. I can also say, I mean, those aspects of the Port Authority are rarely used. I think maybe we've done one tax abatement, or we've thought about one. I don't even think in the 5 years or 6 years I've been down here, we've done any through the Port Authority. We generally use it for to get grant funds from the feds or state funding. Yeah, it does have bonding capacity as well, which can be a real benefit.
Great. Thank you very much, Alderman. I do see there are a lot of benefits that come along with this, and I appreciate the Alderwoman from the 6th looking into efforts into, you know, how we can address those specific powers in the future, and happy to be part of that effort. So thank you very much. No more questions.
Alderman from the 22nd.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. With the Alderman from the 7th yield to a question.
Alderman from the 7th will yield a question to the Alderman from the 22nd.
Yes.
Alderman, do the Port Authority have to be contiguous as far as other wards that may want to participate? Because I'm certainly all the way on the west side, and I'm trying to look like if it has to be contiguous, how we can take advantage of those type of incentives.
Yes, it has to be contiguous. Alderman, I suspect we could get creative and figure out how to get over there. I don't know. We'd have to look at that, but I bet we could. Currently, the current boundary, which I included the map in my amendment that shows the entire citywide boundary of the Port Authority. It goes all the way north to the city's northern point. I'm sure we could figure something out in a future bill, Alderman.
So is the 2nd ward part of the authority?
The 2nd ward?
Uh-huh.
Yes, the existing Port Authority.
Okay, all right, thank you. No further questions.
Any further questions? Alderman from the 1st.
Mr. President and members of the board, if the Alderwoman from the 6th would yield.
Alderman from the 6th will yield the question to the Alderman from the 1st.
I will.
Alderman from the 1st, please proceed.
Alderwoman, you and I have had conversations in the past about concerns. So, and you said you still had concerns about the ability to go around the Board of Aldermen and to do eminent domain. And because the Port Authority by statute from the state gets that right to do eminent domain, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so is there anything that prohibits us from limiting or at least putting it in a board bill that they would still have to come to us? Or was that something that they said that could not be done since they had statutory right by the state of Missouri?
Right, we're preempted. So we could put it in there, but I don't think it would withstand a legal challenge.
Okay, and when you were, because I know you have been concerned, when you were looking at making your decision about putting your name on this or not, and I know this is in aid of the soccer stadium, were there any kind of things that you found that maybe we could do to limit the power at all, or was there just nothing at this point, rather than going to the state and having them limit the powers?
I think the best thing that we can do right now is have the memorandum of understanding that we do and have the commitment from the current chair of the Port Authority. That being said, you know, we're not all going to be here forever, neither will he. And so that's why I do think it's important to look into changing the state law. And it was my preference. It was my preference to just have this be part of the 6th and 7th ward to address the needs of the soccer stadium, but that's not what other aldermen decided along with SLDC. And so that's why we are where we are today. I'm hoping, like we said here, that SLDC can work with us to prove that this is actually going to be beneficial. to our wards and areas that have seen disinvestment and need, all the tools that they can have in order to move forward with new development projects. But I'll be watching it closely.
And do you know why, because the Alderman from the 7th, and this may be a question I should have directed to him, why the grants and things that he's talking about, why they would only be limited to the Port Authority and not to other parts of the city and or to our development corporation?
Yes, I apologize. I think I would have to let Alderman from the 7th answer that. I do not currently have any port area in my boundaries, and I'm unfamiliar with the intricacies of that work.
Okay, and also, are you familiar with our sales tax structure and how, we're at the top of our sales tax, but we keep adding the sales tax. Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm familiar with the issue, and I don't think it's applicable in this instance.
And why is that?
Because we haven't reached the max that we're allowed under state statute, and it's different pools of money that are outside sales tax.
Okay, and would this sales tax be citywide or just in an area?
Just in the area.
Okay, and is that why we're not reaching it, or is it your understanding that we're not close to reaching it totally for the city?
I don't have enough information to answer that well today. I apologize.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. President, if I could ask if the Alderman from the 7th would yield.
Alderman from the 7th, we yield the question to the Alderman from the 1st.
Yes.
Alderman from the 1st, please proceed.
Alderman, you talked about the different kinds of incentives and things that we can get only through the Port Authority. Can you tell me why it's limited to the Port Authority? Do you have that information?
Yeah.
Why we can use it like with, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, there's just a number like the U.S. Department of Transportation and FEMA have a number of programs that are applicable literally only to port authorities. It's just how they're written. There's stuff for flood mitigate. There's like flood mitigation money that you can use in a port district, even if it's fairly inland. That's just how those various grants are doled out. I know I've utilized a number of them along the riverfront in the 7th Ward, and this would open those up to other areas as well. And I want to just correct, if I could, correct one thing as well. I know that was mentioned on the 1% sales tax, that authority, if doing a 1% sales tax for the soccer stadium would not expand that 1% sales tax to the entire district, just the little district that encompasses the soccer stadium.
Is that in legislation or is that just understood?
No, that's in legislation. So you can, within a port authority, you can create port improvement districts and their sales tax, you can implement a 1% sales tax, but it doesn't apply to the entire district. You have to go and create those then basically like sub districts within the port authority.
So that 1% would just be for the soccer stadium, but not for the 25th Ward or the 9th Ward or whatever the other wards that are included. I think part of the 5th.
That's correct.
Okay. Is that something that maybe would help those other wards? Or is that something that could be expanded later if that's what they wanted?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing stopping. I mean, the next step for the port improvement district for MLS, they'll have to draw the boundaries and then it'll have to go to the port council or whatever we call the port authority board. But yeah, I mean, you could put those elsewhere or use them on other developments in the various wards that are included in the port authority's boundaries, but you're not required to, and it would still require approval of the port authority board.
Okay, and you made mention that since the time you've been here, which is been 3 years now? Have you been here 3 years now?
Oh, Alderwoman, I've been here since for 5 years.
Is it? Okay. Anyway, so during that time, okay. During that time, you said that, you've been sat on the Port Authority by virtue that you are Alderman of the 7th Ward. Is that why you sit on the Port Authority?
No, I don't sit on the Port Authority. I just interact with the Port Authority.
Oh, there is somebody because I know the president used to sit there. Is there somebody that's appointed by?
I chaired the Port Authority years and years ago.
And was that by
Based on-
virtue of an appointment from the mayor or appointment from one of the committee chairs?
An appointment.
Right, okay, right. So anyway, I'm sorry, Alderman, you worked with the Port Authority, and you said in all that time, they've never used eminent domain in the 5 years you've been working with them?
No, they have not.
Okay, and that they have made a commitment not to do it, is that my understanding?
So the commitment from them is, I mean, if they were seeking it, they would come to the board for a resolution in support of either eminent domain or tax abatement.
And so that's just for the people as they currently sit. They don't really have to do it since they have statutory authority to do it anyway. Is that correct?
I don't disagree with you, Alderwoman. I suppose they could break their word. I would advise against it.
Oh, kind of like somebody maybe when we pass the tax for to have money for our different wards for the mayors who then try to come after it after we specifically had conversations. That kind of thing you're talking about, breaking your word. All that could never happen, except for it already has happened when Mayor Slay was the mayor, and it's attempting to go on now. So that's the concern that people have, is that what you get from somebody or from one person doesn't mean that it continues to the next board. So statutorily, if they wanted to, they don't have to do it that way. Is that right?
I suppose that's correct. I mean, obviously we cannot change the power. These were powers granted by the state of Missouri, and under, I think it's chapter 62 or 68 of the revised statutes. But yeah, I can just only speak from my experience in working with the Port Authority and its staff and the board that it's been a positive experience, and I've not had any issues.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
All right. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 7th, you recognize the close on the perfection of Board Bill 28 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd ask for your favorable consideration. I renew my motion to perfect Board Bill 28 as amended.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from 22nd, that we perfect Board Bill 28 as amended. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Rhodey.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
No.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley.
No.
23 aye votes.
No. Did you get me?
Yeah, she got you.
That was 23 aye votes, 2 no votes, and 2 present.
By vote, staying the motion of Alderman from the 7th and perfected Board Bill 28 as amended.
Board Bill 23, sponsored by Alderman Boyd. An ordinance recommended by the Parking Commission, making appropriation for payment of the operating expenses, capital expenses, including lease purchase agreements, debt service expenses of the Parking Division of the Treasurer's Office for fiscal year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 in the sum of $17,560,584, including $1,930,355 for capital improvements, including an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 22nd, recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 23.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'm sure most of you are aware of the Post-Dispatch editorial that came out in reference to some irregularities in issuing a contract.
Alderman from the 22nd, are you want to make a motion, or you're going to do something else with it?
No, I am going to place Board Bill 23 on the informal calendar, but I wanted to share with you why I was putting it on the informal calendar.
All right, thank you.
And
Please move forward.
thank you. And due to some of these irregularities, I just think that there's some more due diligence that need to be done in reference to the budget. I want to make sure that the budget actually supports the total award of the contract. And so I will be revisiting this issue, but right now I want to keep it on the informal calendar until further notice. Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, please place Board Bill 23 on the perfection informal calendar.
So noted. That is the extent of board bills for perfection.
All right, and under the third reading consent calendar, there's Board Bill 25 by the Alderperson from the 20th. That still needs to go before ENA. So Alderman from the 20th, would you like to place Board Bill 25 on the third reading informal calendar?
I would like to put it on the informal calendar, yes, and I'm hopeful that the Board of ENA can get this done quickly because, of course, the health department does need this grant money.
We also need the city's budget, so I've been pushing ENA for a meeting, and we still have not gotten a meeting. So hopefully we'll have it at the regular ENA meeting next week. We will dispense with line items 18 through 21. Second reading of resolutions.
Resolution 16, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, approve the City of St. Louis Senior Citizen Service Fund budget for fiscal year 2020 through 2021.
Alderwoman from the 26th, you recognize on the second reading of resolution number 16.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I move for unanimous consent on resolution number 16.
Then move, would you like to just move for adoption of resolution number 16?
Yes, thank you. I move for adoption of resolution number 16.
Been moved by the Alderman from 26. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by Alderman from the 21st and the 22nd. Alderman from 26, please proceed.
Resolution number 16 is the approval of the City St. Louis Senior Citizen Service Fund. And with that, I will yield for any questions.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 26, you recognize the close.
Thank you. I renew my motion.
It's been moved by the Alderman from 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 21st and 22nd, that we adopt resolution number 16. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. That I will. Opposed?
Thank you. You do so.
Motion carried. Miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Tuesday, June 16th, 2020, COVID-19 Special Committee will meet at 1 p.m. and it's via webinar. Wednesday, June 17th, Rules will have a meeting 10 a.m. via webinar. Thursday, June 18th, Ways and Means will have a meeting 10 a.m. via webinar. And also Thursday, June 18th, Health and Human Services will have a meeting 11 a.m. via webinar. Friday, June 19th, full board meeting 10 a.m. via webinar. That's the extent of the announcements.
Any further announcements? Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to announce two things. I would like us all to congratulate the alderman from the 21st on a birthday this week, as well as our secretary, our executive secretary, Ms. Tracy Billups, who had her birthday yesterday. So we can all wish him a happy birthday.
Yeah, happy
And
birthday.
then I also want to announce that next Friday, Friday, June 19th, we'll be having happy birthday. But yeah, next Friday, June 19th, I would like to invite everyone to a Juneteenth celebration on Cherokee Street. It will be a socially distanced event. But we are going to be having a Juneteenth at Nebraska and Cherokee next Friday. So everyone is invited. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Happy birthday to the alderman from the 21st and also Tracy Billups. Let's give them a big happy birthday clap. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 22nd?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'll also like to extend a happy birthday to our esteemed colleague from the 17th, Joe Rody, who's celebrating a birthday tomorrow.
Oh man, happy birthday,
Gemini.
Joe. Way to go, Joe. Alderman from the 23rd.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, if either Board Bill 63 or 65, if either one of the sponsors want to have a meeting this week, let me know and we'll set it up.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 7th. Alderman from the 7th.
Yeah, sorry about that. Thank you. I just, in regards to Board Bill 65, everybody, I just sent an email around to the board. I've already received a number of responses. It's a board bill to simply codify what's been practiced the last couple months, which is to-go liquor sales for bars and restaurants with a food order. I'd love to see, a lot of co-sponsors on this thing. We want to have a good, strong showing, show our support for our bars and restaurants, and also try to show the governor and the legislature that would like this change to be permanent. And I think this will help. So Alderman Vaquero, I'll coordinate with you to try to get a hearing set up. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to add someone else to the birthday train, and that is Alderwoman Marlene Davis from 1940. Her birthday is on Sunday.
Oh, she wasn't going to say anything. Happy. Man, all of these people born in June.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome. Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to announce that myself and my neighbors in Dutchtown are having a march for justice and equality tomorrow. It will be starting at 8:46, representative of the time that George Floyd was crying out and trying to breathe. So it's tomorrow at 8:46. For more information, you can go to dutchtownstl.org/846. But I hope to see lots of people there.
Thank you, Alderman, and thank you for organizing that march. Alderwoman from the 13th.
Thank you, President, members of the board. I have an announcement too. I said there, the St. Cecilia Historic District at St. Cecilia's Church. They're meeting at St. Cecilia's Church on Sunday, the 14th, about 12:30 for a march through the neighborhood also concerning Black Lives Matter. So I wanted to make sure I said that. 12:30, St. Cecilia's parking lot over on Alaska. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 25th put his hand back up. Do you have another announcement, Alderman?
I just want to acknowledge, I had very little in coordinating the efforts for tomorrow. This was
Thanks for
very much
announcing
driven
it,
by my
then.
neighbors.
Yeah.
I have a great group of neighbors who have been putting their heart and soul into organizing this effort. And we're expecting a pretty good crowd. So if you all are able to join us, I would love to have you down in Dutchtown. But I need to give credit where credit is due, and that's definitely to my neighbors.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman from the 11th, you had a special guest today. We saw a little bit earlier. Is the special guest still with you? Alderwoman from the 11th, Sarah Martin. You had a special guest earlier today.
Sorry, nothing special, just my daughter.
Okay. Well, tell her hi from all of us.
I will, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Mr. President, members of the board, all members are present.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move to adjourn till next Friday, June 19th at 10 a.m.
Second.
Moved by Alderman from 22nd, seconded by Alderman from 10th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Sharon, you have to be quicker on the no. Have a great week.
Shane and I only do that for when people are absent. We try not to say no too many times when we are adjourning.
All right. See you guys later. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.